Hi, I'm Josiah Stendhal, the writer and director of Every Man's Price, here with actor Joseph Isaacs. And today we have something really cool to share with you. You know, originally Joseph wasn't slated to play one of the bad guys beside Price. We had another guy who was supposed to play the part, but due to a scheduling conflict at the last minute, a day before filming, we found out that he wasn't going to be able to be there. So I'd already known Joseph for a while, and so I thought maybe he'd be willing to play the part. I asked my family and they're like, no, he has such a sweet smile, no one would ever believe that he could play the bad guy, you know. But I just have a real peace about asking Joseph. So I text him, you know, hey Joseph, would you be interested in playing the part in the film? You know, you'd be a criminal beside Price, and you know, here would be the times, here's a copy of the script, would you be interested? And so he writes back, yeah, sure, that'd be awesome, it sounds so cool, and look forward to it, and then he writes after that, you know I used to be a gangster, right? And I thought that he was joking. I had no idea. And so the day comes for filming, the next day we're there on location filming, and right before we start filming I asked, so Joseph, what's this about you being a gangster? And so then he proceeds to tell me the most incredible story. And we really wanted to include it as part of the film because we really think that it tells the story that we want to tell with this film. So we're extremely excited about it, and just let me introduce you to a real-life Price.
Yeah, so when Josiah reached out to me and asked me to be a part of this film, I was really excited, especially after I got to see the script and noticed that my role was that of a gangster, which related really well with my past and my drug and criminal activity, which started back in the 8th grade where I was caught with drugs. And this pattern of behavior continued on for quite some time, up until the point to where I eventually had a drug habit that was over $1,000 a day. And I was selling drugs to support this habit, a lot of drugs. And at one time, I got to the point at one time where I got pulled over by the police, who were at the time trying to catch me in the act of selling, and they was trying to get evidence on me to put me away anyways. So the police pulled me over one night, and I had a large quantity of drugs in my possession, and I ate all of the drugs to try to keep the cop from finding those in my possession and looking at a lot of time in prison. So I ate everything. Shortly after, within minutes, my lungs shut down. I don't remember any of this, but EMTs arrived on the scene, brought me to the hospital. It was in the ambulance where I actually flatlined several times, one of which I was actually dead for 6 minutes in the ambulance. And so I made it to the hospital though, thank God, and the EMTs revived me, and I'm in the hospital, and so I'm laying here on the hospital bed, and I'm on life support. Actually, they just took me off life support, but I still got all these tubes on me, and there's an argument that occurs while I got some friends in the hospital room with me, and I actually get pepper sprayed while I'm laying in the hospital bed, and I got all these tubes running in me and everything. It was kind of a comical scene. So. But the nurses run in, they're, you know, asking if they want to call the cops to get these people arrested and get them out of my room. And at the time, I was actually just playing peacemaker. I'm trying to get everyone calmed down so that the cops do not come, because, like I said, I had already had an encounter with the cops in the first place. That's what started this whole thing. And I was actually at the time trying to devise a plan to escape the hospital, because I was actually worried that I was going to go to jail after all this happened. So it was just funny, comical situation. So it still didn't deter my behavior. I still continued on using drugs for quite some time. Approximately a year later, I ended up getting arrested again, and this was the last time I got arrested. I had a large quantity of drugs on me, and there was a lot of evidence, and so this time I knew I was going to be going away for a while. I was looking at 2 counts of trafficking, 10 to 20 years, so I was kind of settling in for the long haul, and there was a circumstance while I was in jail where I got into a fight and got put into solitary confinement in the hole, and this is where my walk with Jesus kind of started. It's where I, had an encounter with God, and while in the hole, I was going through some of my old mail, and some of the letters were these inspirational cards that someone had been sending me. I didn't know who it was at the time, but I knew they knew who I was because of the way they addressed the cards. And on one of them in particular, I just felt like God was just highlighting to me. It said, God had great things planned for me. And that just really stood out to me. So here I was looking at 10 to 20 years, and I had a really bad drug habit. I was like, God, what kind of plans could you possibly have for me? I just like, help me out with this, and I'll give you a shot. It was kind of like a bargain. And so I spent that time in the hole in prayer, reading the Bible and just reflecting on this stuff. And once I got out of the hole, I got put back into my cell, and the same cell that I was in before I went to solitary confinement. And there was a guy, they had moved into my cell. He was new, and he had this book with him. It was called The Key to Your Expected End, written by Katie Souza, who had written this book when she was in prison. And it was specifically written for people who are incarcerated and how to find their purpose while they are in prison. Looking back now at my time in the hole and my prayer to God and how to find my purpose, it was then that I realized, well, this book was the answer to that prayer. It was specifically how I can find out what my purpose is, and that's what Katie's message was instrumental in doing, was showing me how to find out. Well, first of all, that God does have great plans and hope in the future for me, and that it was just instrumental in showing me how to find out what those plans were and how to have a relationship with God. So yeah, I'm just beginning to experience God's graces in my life while I'm in jail. He's just given me a great amount of peace even while I'm incarcerated, locked up in a cell. And so one of the things that he really showed up in a powerful way was at this time, like I said, I was reading the Bible. And as you can imagine, in jail, it's very chaotic, a lot of violence going on, and when you're sitting here trying to read a Bible, not to mention a King James version, it's very hard to concentrate, Well, I asked God, I was like, what can we do to increase the peace here? And he just began to highlight to me that, one of the reasons everyone's fighting is because of food. A lot of people would fight over food, portions and stuff like that. And so I also asked for more recreation where we could go outside, because there was a rec yard. But I'd been going to this jail for like 10 years, and we never did get to go outside. But I was like, God, if we could go outside, maybe, it'd cause some of these people to get tired and stuff like that, and maybe people wouldn't want to fight as much. Soon after, within that week, we started getting extra portions, bigger portions on our trays, on our lunch trays, and the guards were actually even sliding in extra trays into our cell, and so people was getting more food. And then they also started bringing us outside 3 times a week. So it's just amazing, and it got to the point where I don't remember the exact time frame, but I think it went on for like 2 months that there wasn't a fight in the entire jail. And that's just like unheard of, And so it's just really amazing to see God move like that, and it really done a lot for my faith while I was in jail, and just to see that He does answer our prayers, and He does move in our situations and our circumstances, like my court case as well. One of the things Katie highlighted in her book was how she also got favor in her court case. I think she originally was looking at 14 years. She was actually sentenced, and she ended up getting 7. So I too was like, God, I want favor in my court case too. I don't want to do 10 or 20 years. I need your help in this. So we get to court, and my first offer is 10 years. Well, naturally, like anybody knows, you always turn down your first offer. You try to make it appear like, you're going to wrestle with them a little bit. Yeah, you're going to have to give me a little bit better than that, So I turned that down, and but it came down time for the second offer, and this is kind of where it gets a little hairy, because as anyone who has been involved in the justice system like that, any convict or anything, knows that you got to be careful with your second offer, because when you turn it down, it kind of illustrates that you're butting heads with the state, and that you're not cooperating with them, and they can you can end up getting a lot more time than what they offer you. But like I said, I had been, praying and talking with Holy Spirit, with God, and with Jesus about this whole thing. So I went to them about my second offer. I was like, what should I do? Should I take this second offer or leave it? I still yet didn't know what it was, how much time the second offer was, but Holy Spirit said, turn it down. So against everyone's advice, against my lawyer's advice, the judge's advice, everyone else in the jail, because I'd been sharing with them everything that had been happening as well, and against everyone's advice, I turned down my second offer, which was also 10 years, the same as my first offer they had. So amazingly, 2 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail from a paid attorney who wants to pick up my case pro bono. And first thing he does is he has all the evidence sent off to the lab. Well, one of the worst charges that I was facing, that evidence came back inconclusive. So they brought me back into court. They completely dropped that charge. They amended the other charge down to a possession charge, which carried a 1 to 5 sentence. And instead of the 10 to 20 years I was initially looking at, I ended up getting out in 1 year. So now, 2 years later, with this film and the opportunity that it has given me and the open doors, my hope is that I not only reach the captives that are currently incarcerated on the inside, but those under any form of captivity or bondage on the outside as well.